What if I told you that one of the longest economic depressions in modern history didn't begin with a war or a natural disaster, but with railroads, overconfidence, and a single bank's collapse? The Panic of 1873 is a story most people today have never heard of, yet it shaped modern banking, destroyed millions of lives, and triggered a depression that lasted for more than 2 decades in some parts of the world. This wasn't just a crash. It was a collapse so deep, so relentless, that it changed the very way governments and banks deal with money forever. Today we'll uncover the forgotten story of the Panic of 1873, how it began, why it spiraled, and how its echoes can still be heard in our financial system today. The mid-19th century was a time of rapid change. The United States had just come out of the Civil War. Europe was industrializing at a breathtaking pace, and one of the hottest industries of the age was the railroad. Railroads were like the tech startups of the 19th century. They promised progress, expansion, and unimaginable wealth. Investors from America, Britain, and Germany poured money into building tracks across the continent. At the center of this frenzy was a man named Jay Cooke, a banker who had once been hailed as a financial hero. During the Civil War, Cooke helped finance the Union by selling war bonds. He became known as the savior of the Union, but by the 1870s, he was betting everything on railroads, especially the Northern Pacific Railway. The stage was set for both extraordinary growth and extraordinary disaster. The problem was simple: too much optimism, too much debt, and not enough real wealth. Railroads required massive amounts of capital to build. Companies borrowed heavily from banks and sold bonds to investors. Jay Cooke's firm aggressively marketed these bonds, promising that the Northern Pacific would open vast new lands and create endless profits. But there were warning signs. The land along the proposed tracks wasn't always fertile. Population growth wasn't as fast as predicted, and construction costs ballooned. Still, the money kept flowing because everyone believed the boom would never end. By 1873, the bubble was stretched to its breaking point. On September 18, 1873, Jay Cooke and Company abruptly closed its doors. The bank had run out of money. Investors who had trusted Cooke were left with worthless bonds. Word spread like wildfire. Crowds gathered outside banks. The New York Stock Exchange had to close for 10 days, something that had never happened before. Other banks failed. Railroads halted construction. Businesses shut down overnight. Within weeks, what began as one bank's collapse became a full-blown financial panic. The years that followed were brutal. Over 18,000 businesses collapsed in the United States. 89 railroads went bankrupt within just 2 years. Millions of people lost their jobs. Families starved, while once wealthy investors were ruined. And it wasn't just America. The panic spread to Europe, especially Germany and Austria-Hungary. Factories closed. Workers rioted. Political movements grew out of desperation, including socialist and anarchist uprisings. In the U.S., the crisis gave birth to a period known as the Long Depression. It lasted from 1873 until at least 1879, but some argue its effects lingered into the 1890s. This was not just a downturn. It was the first truly global economic crisis of the industrial age. Governments scrambled to respond. In the U.S., President Ulysses S. Grant stuck to the hard money policy, refusing to print more greenbacks, paper money. Instead, he insisted on returning to a gold-backed currency. This move pleased creditors, but crushed debtors, farmers, and workers. In Europe, governments also tightened money supplies, deepening the suffering of the working classes. The railroads eventually recovered, but the lesson was clear: unchecked speculation, over-reliance on debt, and fragile banking systems could destroy entire economies. If this all sounds familiar, it should. The Panic of 1873 has been called the Great Depression of the 19th century, and it mirrors later crises. The Great Depression of 1929, sparked by speculation and banking collapse. The 2008 global financial crisis, triggered by risky lending and overconfidence in housing. Even the dot-com bubble, where investors poured money into railroads of the internet age. In each case, human optimism collided with financial reality, and the fallout reshaped the world. So, What can we learn from the Panic of 1873? 1. Speculation without limits always ends in collapse. Railroads in the 19th century were the crypto and tech stocks of their day. Hype can't outrun reality forever. 2. Banking systems are fragile. One firm's collapse can trigger a domino effect, destroying businesses and livelihoods around the globe. 3. Policy choices matter. Governments that cling to rigid financial rules in times of crisis can turn downturns into depressions. The Panic of 1873 reminds us that history doesn't repeat itself exactly, but it does rhyme. Every generation thinks its boom will last forever. Every generation thinks it's smarter than the last. But the truth is, economies are built on trust. And when that trust shatters, collapse spreads like wildfire. So next time you hear about a can't-fail investment, remember the story of Jay Cook and the Long Depression. If you found this story eye-opening, make sure to subscribe, share this video with a friend, and check out our other deep dives into the hidden history of money and power. Because the past has more to teach us than we think.